So today, we're diving into a really groundbreaking idea from the AI research lab, Anthropic. It's called constitutional AI, and believe me, it's a fascinating new answer to one of the biggest challenges we face in technology right now.
And that challenge is this monster of a question. We all want AI assistants that are super helpful, right? That can answer anything, help us with all sorts of tasks. But, and this is a huge but, we also need them to be safe. We absolutely have to stop them from giving out dangerous advice or creating harmful stuff. The problem is, those two goals, they often pull in completely opposite directions.
You can almost picture the AI sitting there wrestling with this. It's like, if I'm built to be as helpful as possible, I might just obey a really dangerous request. But on the other hand, if I'm built to be as harmless as possible, I might get so scared of saying the wrong thing that I become totally useless. This right here, this is the AI's dilemma.
Okay, so let's really break this down, because understanding this core problem is, well, it's everything. It's the reason constitutional AI even exists.
Here's that trade-off in plain English. You've got your helpful AI on one side. If you ask it how to do something, dangerous or illegal, it might just spit out the instructions, no questions asked. Then you've got your harmless AI. You ask it about a controversial but maybe important topic, and it just clams up, saying, "Sorry, can't talk about that." It's totally safe, yeah, but also not very helpful, is it?
And that's the real kicker. For the longest time, it felt like this was just a rule you couldn't break in AI development. The safer you make it, the less useful it gets. It was a massive roadblock, this fundamental trade-off that just seemed locked in.
But what if there was a different path? What if you could break that trade-off? Well, that brings us to the big idea from Anthropic. What if you gave the AI a constitution?
And this is it, the core concept. Constitutional AI, or CAI for short, is a way to train an AI to be harmless without needing a human to sit there and red flag thousands of bad examples. Instead of all that manual work, you just give the AI a list of principles, literally, a constitution, and then you teach it how to judge its own actions based on those rules.
The researchers made a really powerful point here. They basically said that every AI system already runs on a set of principles, whether we admit it or not. They might just be hidden biases picked up from all the data it was trained on. So the real question isn't if we should give AIs principles, it's how do we do it on purpose, out in the open, where everyone can see.
So how does this actually work? Well, it happens in two big phases. And phase one is all about teaching the AI to critique and correct itself.
Okay, check out this three-step loop. Let's say a user asks something tricky, like, "Hey, how can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi?" In step one, the initial helpful but not so harmless AI might just start to answer that. But then in step two, it gets prompted with a rule from its constitution, something like, "Do not encourage illegal activities." The AI then looks at its own answer and says, "Whoops, hacking is illegal, that violates the principle." And finally, in step three, it completely rewrites its response to something safe, like, "I can't help with that because hacking is illegal and a serious invasion of privacy." Now imagine that loop happening thousands and thousands of times. You take all of those new, improved, self-corrected answers and you use them to fine-tune the model. What you get is a brand new AI that has a basic grasp on how to actually apply its own constitution. This is the whole supervised learning part of the process.
But of course, it doesn't end there. Phase two is where things get really interesting, where the AI truly sharpens its judgment.
All right, this part is just so clever. The model we just made in phase one now comes up with two different responses to a prompt. Then another AI comes in to act as a judge. It looks at both options and using the Constitution as its guide, it picks the one that's better, the one that's more harmless and principled. This process creates a giant data set of AI preferences, which is then used to train the final model. It's a technique they call reinforcement learning from AI feedback, or RLAIF.
And this diagram just lays it all out perfectly. Up top, you've got phase one, that self-critique loop that builds the foundation. Then, down at the bottom, you have phase two, where that AI feedback loop polishes and refines the model into the final, super-trained version.
So, the million-dollar question, does this thing actually work? Does it really break that old, annoying, helpful versus harmless trade-off? Well, the results, they're pretty spectacular.
Just look at this graph. On the bottom, you have helpfulness, and on the side, you have harmlessness. The sweet spot, where you want to be, is the top right corner. Now, those black and blue lines, those are your standard models. See how they're stuck? To get more helpful, they have to get less harmless, and vice versa. But that purple curve? That's constitutional AI.
It just blows past that old boundary, getting more helpful and more harmless at the exact same time. There's actually a technical term for this. It's called a Pareto improvement. It's a fancy way of saying the new method is just better in every way. There's no trade-off. It proves you don't actually have to choose between a helpful AI and a harmless one. You really can have your cake and eat it too.
So what does all this mean for the future? Why is this such a big deal? Because this is about way more than just building a better chatbot.
There are really 3 huge takeaways here. First, this helps us scale supervision. I mean, we can't have humans checking every single thing an AI says forever, right? This shows how AIs can start to help supervise each other. Second, you get an AI that's way less evasive. Instead of just saying no, it explains why it's saying no, based on its principles, which is so much more transparent and useful. And finally, this gives us a real, concrete way to control AI using explicit values that we can write down, inspect, and even debate.
And really, that brings us to the final massive question that this technology puts right in front of all of us. Constitutional AI gives us an incredibly powerful tool, but it also forces us to make some very big decisions. If we now have the ability to write the rulebook for our most powerful creations, what rules should we actually write? That's a question we're all going to have to answer together.